This International Women's Day, we are thrilled to have author Cathy Marie Buchanan join us. Cathy is a New York Times bestselling author living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and her work has been translated into 9 languages. She holds a Bachelor of Science, Honors Biochemistry, and an MBA from Western University, and recently became a yoga instructor. Her debut novel, The Day the Falls Stood Still, was a New York Times bestseller, a Barnes & Noble Recommend selection, and a Canada Reads Top 40 Essential Canadian Novels of the Decade. Her second novel, The Painted Girls, was a New York Times bestseller, a #1 national bestseller in Canada, and was named a Best Book of the Year by NPR, Good Housekeeping, and Goodreads. Her third and most recent book, Daughter of Black Lake, was chosen as Best Fiction for Fall by Entertainment Weekly and Parade Magazine. Today we will be discussing Cathy's book, Daughter of Black Lake. Even though the novel is set in a time and place that's unfamiliar to us, there are several themes in the book that a present-day reader can relate to, such as female empowerment, significance of names, disability awareness, colonization, social classes, connection to nature, religion, and the importance of community and traditions. We are very excited to discuss these themes with Cathy. Welcome, Cathy.
Welcome. Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
And our first question is, what inspired you to write a novel about family and community in first century Britannia?
Well, it all started one morning when I opened up the Globe and Mail, and this was maybe 20 years ago, and I opened it up to see a picture of a bog body. So this is a body that has gone into a watery bog, 2,000-3,000 years ago. And then because of the chemical makeup of the water, the body is preserved over time. So this picture, I was absolutely captivated by it. I mean, despite this body being 2,000 years old, you could see the whiskers on the face, you could see the fingerprints, you could see the fine lines in the skin, the matted hair. It was absolutely crazy. I was fixated, and I got really curious about what was life like 2,000 years ago. And this picture just made me think, I don't know, and I can't imagine how this person lived on this earth. So as I do, I started going down a rabbit hole and researching, and what I came upon was a whole bunch of different bog bodies. So these bodies that have gone into bogs and then been preserved. And there was one that I in particular got really interested in, and it was named Lindo Man. So Lindo Man is a body that went into a bog in Black Lake, Cheshire, UK, the once much larger Black Lake, about 2,000 years ago. And then in modern times, when the peat cutters, the bog becomes peat, the peat cutters are cutting the peat, and they come upon this body. This body has been really extensively studied, and for a bunch of different reasons, there's a lot of speculation that this Lindo Man lived and breathed at Black Lake as a druid, so as one of the high priests of the time. So that was sort of the initial impetus for writing the book. What I got really interested in was, what was a society like that really, believed that by honoring the gods, they could guarantee success on the battlefield, or, that the crops would fare well. I was really interested in that. And I was really interested in sort of what was a society like that was bound to the land in sort of the most profound way. And what was a society like where daily and seasonal rituals kind of ordered the days. So what I decided to do was I would take what we know about Lindo Man, this bog body, this druid that had lived at Black Lake, take what we know about him, and I would use that as bedrock to sort of explore these, what life was like in the northern misty boglands of pagan Britain.
That's amazing. I was looking at the materials that you had provided on your website to use for book clubs.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned about the bog bodies, like Lindo Man in
Mhm.
particular. And I ended up looking that up, and it is amazing how well preserved and
Mhm.
just all of the information that you can gain from, examining a body, and how
Mhm.
with that
Mhm.
particular body, they, like you said, felt that it must be somebody who was a high priest, or didn't have to do a lot of labor, based
Right.
on how well kept the body
Right.
was in the
Yeah.
preserved
And then
state.
they know things like what his last meal was. It's wild
Yeah,
stuff they can figure out.
yeah,
So
that it was like some sort of bread or something. I think it said that he
yeah.
had like that many years ago, that you can,
Wow.
yeah, amazing.
Mhm. They know what kind of pollen was in the air, so they know what season it was. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, wow. Um, so looking at, and again, going back to the International Women's Day, each of your novels really centers around female characters who persevere through challenges and find strength through that.
Mhm.
So can you tell us just a little bit about Hobble and her mother Devout, and the
Right.
challenges that they face in your novel?
Yeah. Okay, so the book is narrated by Devout, who is the healer at Black Lake, and then also by her 13-year-old daughter, whose name is Hobble. And she is named Hobble because she walks with a limp. So both of them face challenges. Devout is a hand, so a field hand. It's something you are born into. You are born into being a hand, a field hand, or you are born into one of the trades. So you're a carpenter, or a blacksmith, or a tanner. And those are the more privileged people in society. And then the lesser folks work the field. So Devout is a hand. She has no chance of changing sort of classes. And so she's part of the underclass. And then we have Hobble, who is also born a hand, given that she's the daughter of Devout, but she's also born with this congenital hip. So when she's born, her hip is not in her hip socket, and she grows up to walk with a limp. So that puts her in particular risk because we know from these bog bodies that have been dug up that in many instances the bog bodies show evidence of having had different disabilities in their lives. So the archaeologists believe that in many instances these bodies were actually human sacrifices, and they were human sacrifices of people that were considered to be runts, or people that had disabilities that perhaps made them not contribute to the same extent as other members in society. So Hobble has that issue. However, Hobble is a very tough gal. Hobble learns to run. She's the fastest kid in her little village. And her parents really support her running. And in part, it's because they don't want her to be seen as the weak gal at Black Lake, the one that might get offed in a time of great stress as a human sacrifice. So she really does, prevail in terms of overcoming her disability, and it becomes more of a difference rather than just a disability. The other thing that is different about Hobble is she is prophetic. So Hobble is a prophetess. She is able to see into the future. When she's a young child, this really works for her. She's very proud of it. It makes her unique. It draws attention to her. It makes her lots of fun to hang around with because she can predict, how many eggs are going to be in a nest and where you can find the best stone and these kinds of things. However, in Daughter of Black Lake, what happens is this druid, Fox, so one of the high priests of the time, comes to Black Lake, and he is hellbent on fomenting rebellion against Roman rule at Black Lake. And Hobble, with her prophetic ability, becomes an arch rival of his because she is having visions that are not supporting engaging with the Romans. So all of a sudden, this ability to see into the future is working against her rather than working for her.
And you had touched a bit on the point where Hobble, her name comes from having the limp, and how names are are earned in this society and given to people through the community. And particularly, there was one part, I'm just going to read a quote here from the book. There was one part that stuck out for me where, and you just spoke to it, where she was running with a friend and the friend had said, "Oh, your name should be Swift because you're so quick." I think she had won a race against him. And then her mother asked her, "You'd like that? Like you'd like your name to be Swift?" And Hobble shakes her head no and says, I like being Hobble. So can you speak a bit to that, where even having a disability, where it's profound, where it's important to accept the disability, embrace it, and how embracing diverse identities is a benefit.
Right. So I think, with Hobble, I don't, when she hears herself being called Hobble, she's not thinking it's because I limp. She's just thinking it's because I'm unique. And with her ability to run, she has changed, basically her disability has just become a difference, something that maybe makes her unique. So she doesn't have a negative association with her name. She also comes with from a supportive, loving family, and a supporting, loving community where she is accepted and embraced. And, Hobble, like her mother, is a healer at Black Lake. So one of the ways Devout sort of lifts herself from the underclass is by, having a miraculous ability, a huge understanding of herbs and how to cure what ails using herbs. And she's teaching Hobble this trade. So, so Hobble has this other thing that makes her special in society as well. Yeah. So in the book, I mean, characters are named after either their occupation, or it might be a character trait, or a physical trait, or a sort of personality trait. So, carpenter in the book is a carpenter, tanner is a tanner, smith is a blacksmith. Devout is called Devout because she is completely devoted to Mother Earth. Hobble is called Hobble because she limps. And, we see this, we suspect that this is how naming conventions actually worked way back when. And we see it reflected even in our society. We all know people that are called, Cook and Singer and Tanner, these kinds of names. And we also know people that are named after personality traits like faith and charity and grace. So we don't really know for sure what the naming conventions were like 2000 years ago, but we suspect that they would have been based on things like this. When I'm introducing my readers to a whole community here at Black Lake, I also liked the idea of helping them out a little bit. And I've had lots of readers say, "Oh, it was so great when I'm meeting a whole crew, community, to when you say this guy's name is Hunter, I know he's the dude who hunts."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really beautiful because I personally didn't view it as like it is, they are labels, but I found that it was beautiful that it's, you're embracing every piece of yourself. Like when Hobble said, "No, I like being Hobble." It's, I embrace my disability. I embrace my gifts. I embrace that I can also run swiftly, but I don't need to change my name to prove that. You know what I mean? Like I just thought that was, yeah, a beautiful piece there.
Thank you.
So also within the story here, Devout states that Hobble's imperfection is her punishment. Can you speak just a little bit about the theme of disability awareness and attitudes that would have been held in Iron Age Britannia, and how this book really challenges those types of attitudes?
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, Hobble's born with a limp, and hence her name. I think in Iron Age Britain, as I mentioned, human sacrifice was practiced. And we know from the archaeological record that often it was the disabled who were offered up to the gods. I think in a society where resources are scarce, if there's someone who's not considered to be pulling their weight because they are physically impaired in some way, that there would be a real risk of them being deemed as the runt, and hence, when resources are limited, being the person who is sacrificed. So certainly in Iron Age Britain, there would have been an awareness about who was weak, who wasn't pulling their weight. Yeah, so in this book, Hobble, though she's disabled, is not weak at all. And she also has other skills, namely her skills as a healer and also her ability to predict the future that elevate her and make her special. I think it's interesting, you know, when the sort of question about like what does a name mean? Like, what would people assume? And has this changed, you know, between Iron Age Britain and now? And it's, I mean, so back then, if you met someone who was named Hobble, you would suspect that they walked with a limp, right? If you met someone named Smith, you would know they were a blacksmith, and you would know the privilege that comes with being a blacksmith. So you would automatically sort of understand that kind of thing. I suppose in this day and age, when people know my name is Cathy Marie Buchanan, they would assume that I have some kind of Anglo-Saxon heritage. It's probably not a big surprise to them that I'm a, you know, fair-skinned, freckled, blue-eyed woman, right? So I think in this day and age, like sort of the things that people might often, we can guess a person's heritage, or we might make assumptions about a person's heritage based on their name. We might presume that they're going to have an accent or not have an accent. We might presume they don't know Canadian ways, these kinds of things. So yeah, I think just like in the Iron Age, there still could be a lot of sort of preconceived ideas based on a person's name.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And that kind of ties into with the themes of the individual versus the collective in society, as well as differences in social class and power are seen throughout your book.
Mm-hmm.
What comment on current day Canadian society could readers take from these themes and from this book?
Well, you know, I think that as time has moved on, we have moved away from being collective more toward individualism, and it's happened more in some places than other. Like I would say on average, the US is more individualistic than Canadians are. It's kind of an interesting time right now with the whole, you know, vaccine thing, because I think that if you really truly were a society that only cared about the collective, we wouldn't have people that aren't willing to get vaccines. They wouldn't say it's only about me and my body. They would be saying it's about, you know, this immune compromised person, or it's about, you know, everybody has the right to, you know, well, even, I mean, y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah, we totally get it. You're like, this is a sticky topic, and I totally get it and agree. Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, you know, I was thinking about this with Daughter of Black Lake. I can't, of course we don't know, but I can't fathom that anyone at Black Lake would resist getting a vaccine, right? If they knew that it was for the greater good. So yeah, I feel like they were more for the collective. And I also think in the end of the story, and I'm not going to blow what happens, but you know, the community rises up in the most collective way possible to, you know, for the sake of their community and for the sake of an individual in their community. They put themselves at great risk and take a very collective action. And I think it's a little bit sad that we're losing our sort of our focus on the greater good versus my own individual.
I think oftentimes too, as Canadians and growing up in Canada, well, and our father's actually he was American, but kind of for us, so we would spend some time, you know, during summers in the States and that and whatnot. But I think oftentimes Canadians do want to think of themselves as being better than
Yeah.
Americans, and you know, we're you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
right.
we're a collective society, where but I think when, like some of the examples that you're giving there, it's like I think we have lost a lot of that, and we need to kind of find our way back to caring more about, you know,
Everyone.
everyone instead of just our own
How can I
self-interest.
benefit type of thing, as opposed
Yeah,
to how can I help others, right?
Right.
yeah. And that ties in a bit to the one thing that I wanted to focus on, which was connection to Mother Nature. And
Mhm.
you know, with the bog dwellers, they're very much connected to Mother Nature, a very strong connection. Um, and we see that with many Indigenous communities,
Right.
also like a strong connection, also trying to reconnect with nature. And um, that has been lost, I think, a lot with industrialization and colonization.
Right. Yeah.
Um, in what ways do you feel maybe that the book serves as a call to action for Canadians? Like, what message might it be
Right.
sending?
I mean, I would love I love the idea of readers reading Daughter of Black Lake and it opening up a tiny little crack onto being able to see sort of the miraculous in our daily lives, or seeing those awe-striking kind of things that exist all around us. I do think by, moving away from nature, we are missing so much of that sort of those awe-inspiring moments. I mean, I think of being on a canoe trip and, I was paddling in a creek and it had just rained and the lilies were glistening and a heron took flight and all of us just stopped paddling and we were quiet for 5 minutes. And I think we were having this kind of collective like awe of nature. And when we live mostly in urban places now, we have removed ourselves to a great extent from nature. And I think there's a couple of reasons why sort of pulling away from nature is bad. And one is, purely practical. If we need to reconnect with nature and look after Mother Earth if we are to survive, right? So there's that. But then just from the purely joyous thing, like nature is amazing and it does offer so many moments of joy. So from a purely impractical point of view, I think, forging a deeper relationship with nature is a wonderful thing too. And I mean, there's all kinds of studies out there now about, the immediate impact of even walking through a forest for half an hour, and how different things happen in your body that are all for the better.
Yeah. And you recently have become a yoga instructor.
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
offer sessions outdoors? Do you try to do that a
Well,
lot
I
in
did
the
in
summer?
the pandemic. I practiced. I mean, I teach in a studio, but in the pandemic, I taught in my backyard for the past 2 summers, and that's been like a really wonderful thing. And yoga is so much about the collective, and I really understood that during this pandemic, where I'm practicing by myself, and I liked practicing by myself, but I very much like the community that comes with yoga, and I like breathing together in a room. Yeah, and I don't know, there is something that happens in an amazing yoga class where it does feel like you're all connected to each other in almost one organism or something like that. So that's really cool. And there's nothing better than doing a sun salutation in the sun. So
Yeah, for sure, right?
I know, I can't wait till the weather gets nice, bright and sunny here again as well, and get out into the nature a little bit more. But
yeah.
so can you tell us a little bit about anything new that you're working on, or
Yeah.
yeah.
It's really interesting because I'm writing the book I'm working on now. I was just thinking about it so much as we were talking, but it is set over the 7 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So it opens with President Kennedy coming on TV and saying there are nuclear missiles on the shores of Cuba aimed at America. And then it takes place over the 7 days before that crisis is resolved. So I write from 4 different characters' points of view. And each of these characters is facing a really big life change. And the idea that the world might cease to exist at any moment is informing the way they're making their decisions. One of the characters I was thinking about in particular as we were talking, her name is Kachida, and she is a Cuban housemaid on the Guantanamo Bay naval base in Cuba. And I mean, she represents sort of the pro-Castro voice in the novel, and she is very much about the collective. And I mean, Castro's early vision of what Cuba could be was very much about the collective and very much about, you know, we're not going to have the rich and the poor. We're going to have, you know, equality, and everybody's going to have a chance, and Black people are going to be able to go into the places that they've been barred from, and everybody's going to be literate, and everybody's going to have a vaccine, and everybody's going to have a health clinic, and everybody's going to, you know, have an opportunity for higher education and all these kinds of things. So yeah, there's a lot in that book about the collective, and I think that book will spur some pretty deep thinking about collectivism versus individualism. Yeah. So we've got Kachida as one of the points of view, and then we've got the wife of one of the naval officers on Guantanamo Bay. We hear from her. She is being evacuated. True to history, the dependents were evacuated from the naval base during the Cuban Missile Crisis. She is being evacuated on a ship with her husband's mistress. And then we hear from one of the sons of this naval family is at boarding school in Virginia. He is in love with his twin brother's girlfriend. So we hear from him, and then we hear from this girlfriend who is sort of the townie girlfriend who has recently discovered who her father is and is seeking to meet him before the world gets blown to smithereens. So.
Oh, that sounds so interesting. I can't wait to read that one. And yeah, maybe we'll be meeting again. Hopefully.
I'm very excited about this book. It's been, I don't know, I mean, in the pandemic, I had so much time to write and everything, but it has been the thing that has sustained me during this pandemic is I've had such a wonderful time reading this book. Yeah, writing this book.
We can't wait to read it.
I'm sure you're also reading as you're writing.
Yeah. Lots of reading involved in writing. You read a sentence 15 times. Yeah, write it once, read it 15 times. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us today to discuss during International Women's Day. And yeah, we just very much value your voice as an author and how you know, amplify different women's voices through your books, different perspectives in that. And yeah, we're just feel so blessed to have been able to meet with you today to discuss Daughter of Black Lake.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thank you for your thoughtful questions. You had me thinking a lot too, which is wonderful because sometimes the questions are very similar and you guys like went off the page a little. So that was
nice. Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, Cathy.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
If you don't want to miss any of our upcoming videos, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below as well as the notifications. And you can also visit our website, chaptersforchange.com, for educational resources and to see what we're up to. See you soon.